Hey guys, I'm Helena. So today we're now post-exile-Wagner and we're going to talk about Tristan and Isolde. As we know, there's a lot of things like happening in those 15 years, I think, in between his last opera and his first plot. He actually calls it a plot, he doesn't call it an opera anymore. Opera is only pre-exile-Wagner, as we know. So now we're with the plot of Tristan and Isolde. And he's done a lot of research, he's done a lot of, also a bit of soul searching, I would say, because there's never that clear of an antagonist, protagonist. Well, protagonist is relatively easily most of the time. That's why I abandoned it, like after the first episode. But antagonist is much more difficult than it was before. And obviously, we're going to start with Tristan and Isolde this week. Next week is Meistersinger. Meistersinger is actually harder with Protagonist. Just remembered. So, with the antagonist in Meistersinger is relatively easy, but the protagonist, the purely good one, is a bit more difficult. It's just basically erased through bad actions by everyone who could be good, and then there's only one remaining who's truly good. But this week's Tristan and Isolde. And you know what? I thought we would just go through it and then see if anyone really qualifies as like the good one or the bad one. Because this is one of the few works of Wagner where there's no Jewish knight figure and Germanic light figure. It's only really Flying Dutchman that doesn't have that, and it's Tristan and Isolde that doesn't have that. And I'm not sure about Meistersinger, but I don't think that Meistersinger does have that either. Not sure of it though. So Tristan and Isolde, again, we're going back to week 1. We don't have that clever structure. By the way, if you want to say goodbye to this, because if I get the notice or the message that I have passed this bloody musicology exam, then this is coming off. Just saying, so you can mentally prepare yourself for seeing someone else next week. Okay, good. We're just gonna go through with it, you know? Here. By the way, obviously Isolde is like painted because I'm basic. Not that I don't love Brangäne. I actually, if I had the choice, I would probably go for Brangäne, but Isolde is such a perfect woman. Had to mark her. So, anyway, Tristan. Yeah. You would think that because he's the protagonist, obviously. Don't have to talk about it. Protagonist, Tristan and Isolde. And there's really the end with protagonist and antagonist. But is he really the good center of it? And I would say no, actually. Because we remember from last year what we said about like the pre-story, about how he deceived her, about how he was like, oh yes, I killed her fiancé. Let's get cured by her. Like, yeah, it's not really the best thing in the world. By the way, if you're asking yourself, why on earth does your hair look like that? It's because I have this middle part. So whenever I go to the hairdresser, it's making it easy to cut a lot of stuff. So this is why, but normally it's this way, so this is why there's like this bump. Anyway, Tristan, as I said, he's not really such a great guy if you really think about it. I mean, he basically he uses her for his own physical well-being, so to say, and then he basically rots her out, so to say. He says, oh yeah, this chick, I just wanted her for my stepdad. Not stepdad, but just like, let's not talk about this. He says, I just wanted her for König Marke. I'm not interested in her. Why would I be? Like, nah, just because I like paint pictures of her all the time. No, just for the king. This doesn't make him that good of a person. Just saying. So we're jumping over the next one because I think that that's probably the most probable that this person is supposed to be the good one. the good center, and this is what we're gonna see next week reflected as well. So we're gonna jump over that person and we're gonna go straight to Isolde. So Isolde is also not that good. She's the protagonist, again, like Tristan. They are the main couple. It's named after them. We've got it here. But it's not really... She's also not that good. I mean, she's better than Tristan because she basically... I don't want to say she always showed her feelings, but she never disguised them or not dismantled them. She never disguised them so much like Tristan. So she's better in that regard. But she's also not like that great. I mean, obviously she didn't have the choice to say no to König Marcus, so she's much better than Tristan. But she's also, let's say it like this, reckless. Especially in the second act. You can say she was, her mind was clouded. But still, like she was, let's say she was a victim of circumstances, but she's not really the good center because she still wants to kill Tristan. There, I said it. And she doesn't really, like, behave that well, especially with Brangäne, with making fun of Brangäne all the time. And as we know originally, this is where the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs come from. So when Isolde sends Brangäne into the woods and says, oh yeah, you gotta get me some herbs, and then has two guys going with her to kill her. So Isolde is not that great of a girl either, or that great of a person. So Corvinal, great guy, unfortunately, well, he's not the good center of it all. Let's just be real, because he's just too minor. He would be a good guy. Honestly, there's really not that much to say about him. Melot. So Melot is the point where we could begin to talk about the evil of the whole thing, but only if we saw Tristan and Isolde as the good ones. Because obviously Melot talks about them to the king. And this is the reason why their love, whatever it is, platonic love, fails. So in this case Melot is the bad, but, and this is something that we obviously know from like later works like Siegfried, Wagner can redeem people in death, and Melot's death is one of them. For example, Fafner is also one of those deaths. He has got a great death. He's really living the dream. He's got this redemption arc with Siegfried, and Siegfried apologizes. And Fafner's got a great death. He might be a bad person, bad snake, bad dragon, bad lindworm. You know what I mean. But he gets a good death. Okay? So Melot also gets that. Melot in the end, where I don't know. Yada yada yada. Tod den alles. Yeah, this is after it. Corvinal. Da 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 da. Yeah. There's got to be on the like one page that I jumped over. Yeah. And Melot dies. Yeah. Because he also tells them where Tristan goes, and then he's like, no, I want to get to Tristan, I want to apologize, and he dies in the process. So, really, he gets this redemption arc. He's jealous, obviously. He's the main bad one in the whole thing, if you look at it from the perspective of Tristan and Isolde, because he blows the whole story up. And he's necessary for the story in this regard, but he doesn't get that bad guy death that Mime gets, for example. I always say Mime is the primary example, or Hagen. They don't get that great deaths. So Melot, he's got a redemption arc there. But if you look at it, that you say Tristan and Isolde are the good ones, and then yeah, Melot unfortunately takes the cake for being the bad one. So, let's go on. Then we've got Brangäne, and she's really the last one of the main roles. And Brangäne is questionable. If you again look at it from the perspective of Tristan and Isolde being the good ones, the great ones, the wonderful ones, yada 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 yada, then Brangäne is not helping. Also, if you're in favor of death, then Brangäne is not helping, because she gives them the potion, the love potion, which ultimately puts their death not in the middle of the first act, but at the end of the third act. Also, I want to say at this point that I have to talk to you about something in the end of the episode, because it bugs me every time that I am at a certain castle in Bavaria. Anyway, so Brangäne, again, questionable. But she also tries to protect Tristan and Isolde, because she says, girl, Melot, he's not the goat. You shouldn't trust him. It's not the best thing in the world. And Isolde's like, what, Melot? No, he's Tristan's best friend. Like, never, girl. Get out. And this was ultimately their downfall. So she's also an ambiguous figure, and this is what I love so much about post-exile-Wagner, because there's not that much good, bad thing anymore, because everyone is human. Even the gods are human. We're going to talk about that in 2 weeks. Even the gods are human. So we're not going to talk about den Hirten und den Steuermann. Not going to talk about it. And now I'm going to talk about who I think, just psychologically, just mentally, just morally, is probably the good one of Tristan and Isolde, and that's the king. It's König Marke. And I'm going to say this nicely, because this is still Tristan and Isolde, and if König Marke is the moral high ground, then, well, it's a bit difficult, because who's the bad guy if König Marke is the good one? Anyway, we're gonna start with König Marke. He only makes his entrance at the end of the second act, so he really doesn't have that much of, and I don't want to say an agency, but we don't know that much about him. We just know, yeah, he married Isolde, and Tristan basically forced him to marry Isolde. So this is our first clue. He didn't want to marry Isolde. He himself said, I don't want another wife. He only accepted it when Tristan said, either you marry her or I'm going to go and I'm not going to come back. Which, by the way, don't want to say Tristan is an asshole, but in this case he is. Come on, people. The worst thing is, I think that Marke would have been okay with that. If Tristan just came to him and said, hey man, I met this woman, I really love her, yes I know she's the enemy, but I really would want to marry her if I am to follow you on the throne. That would have been the way to go, and König Marke would have probably been like, yeah, we're gonna do that. I'm gonna make a contract with the King of Ireland, and everything would have been great, but Tristan didn't do that. Anyway, so this is the first clue, that what we learn about König Marke, that he did not want to marry Isolde. It was not his wish. So he's not a greedy king who was like, that's my gal, I want to have her, she's in Ireland, Tristan, you go get her. No, this is not what happens. He distinctly doesn't want her as his wife. He is fine with being a widower, he's fine with being a king and then having Tristan as his heir, and that's it. This is the next thing, because obviously, if for some reason König Marke impregnated Isolde, which he doesn't do because he doesn't touch her next time, but if he did that and Isolde had his son, then Tristan would be out. Like, he wouldn't get the throne anymore. And this is probably also something that König Marke thought about in this regard. And he was like, yeah, no, I don't want to take this place away from you. So, second second clue, after he didn't want to marry Isolde, is he did never touch her. And this is just a fact. He says that in the second act she's pure. This is one of the major differences from the original, from Wolfram von Eschenbach, that he does not touch her. And Tristan also doesn't touch her, so she dies a virgin, basically. Happens. Anyway, he does not touch Isolde because she's too pure for him, and he doesn't want to make her impure, probably. Not knowing that his wife is singing 40-minute love duets in the night with his stepson. I'm always saying stepson because he's not really, he just like adopted him as a son, adoptive son, but never mind. Just drinking something. Still love this bottle, by the way. So, this is the second sign. He does not touch Isolde. And he doesn't distrust Tristan and Isolde. It's not him who says, yeah, we're gonna wait tonight somewhere behind a wall and then we see if something happens. He's not that guy. It's Melot who comes up to him and says, King, I know something you don't know, and it's about your wife and your adoptive stepson, whatever. I know something, and if he does that in front of the court, or even worse, when someone already knows something or suspects something, then the king has to act. It's really, there's no way out, because he can't be okay with that, because this is about, not only about his, well, manliness, but it's also about his authority as a king. He can't let it slide that his wife and his stepson go to bed with each other or sing love duets at night. He can't let that go. It's impossible for him. He has this choice where he's like, either I can let this go, but then I'm going to be weak, or I can look at that, see right into it, and hope nothing happens. And he does the second. So he's really not at fault. He's really at a moral high ground, unlike anyone else in this whole thing. Which is, by the way, also a new thing. Wagner discards of the tenors. And I'm saying this with all due respect, but he really discards of the tenors as the moral high ground, because that's not happening anymore. You might say Siegfried now, but trust me, no. He kills the Fafner. I wanted to say the snake, but you know what I mean. The worm, the dragon, whatever, the snake, whatever. He still kills it. He's still not a good guy, Siegfried, because he's stupid enough to just drink randomly when a woman tells him to. Wagner constantly discards of that. We have this week, we have this next week, we have this in the ring for like 3 out of 4 weeks. That the tenor is not the center of gravity. In Götterdämmerung there's really no good, let's be real. And Parsifal, there's also a certain person who's better than the tenor, and it's not a tenor. Anyway, so this is really a new shift. We had that before, that Tannhäuser was the epitome, or Lohengrin was the epitome. This is not happening anymore. So we have König Marke now. And as I said, what is he to do? He has really no alternative, and this is something that I would advise us all to do. I learned this like while studying Anne Boleyn, and I thought, what could she have done differently? And there was really hardly another option for her. Either his whore, or she was discarded completely and her family was thrown out of court, or she goes the high route and becomes queen. 3 options. She chose option 3 because her sister already was his whore and she didn't want to end like her. So this is the same thing here. König Marke has no other options but to spy on Tristan and Isolde. And what does he do? what exactly does he do when he finds them? He sees them and he's disappointed, which is, as we all know, is the worst thing if someone's disappointed in you. But he's disappointed, and he's not disappointed in Isolde, he's disappointed in Tristan. By the way, at the time that this was written, Wagner lived with the family Wiesendonck, and he may or may not have had an affair with Mathilde Wiesendonck, and her husband may or may not have found that out and may have blamed Wagner for that whole thing. So we have the same dynamic in Wagner's private life, and I know that most professors or something don't want you to say, oh yeah, this is the personal life that's playing into the play. Yeah, but in this case it is. Let's be real. Just like Wiesendonck blamed Wagner for this affair, Marke blames Tristan. But he doesn't really blame him. He's disappointed in him, which is, again, the worst. Also, just like, unlike Tristan and Isolde, Wagner and Mathilde actually had a physical affair. Let's just say it like this. But anyway. Where were we? Okay, yeah. Mark is disappointed, and he has this huge, I think it's 10-11 minutes long, where he's just disappointed in Tristan. He doesn't even blame Isolde, he doesn't really blame Tristan, he's just disappointed in him. And I mean, he could have, this crash out would be valid if he just said, get him, take his head off, send her back to Ireland. I don't know, hang her, whatever. Hang him at his toes in the courtyard, like in Princess Diaries. So this could have happened, and this would have been a valid crash out, but he doesn't do it, because he still loves Tristan and Isolde from the depth of his heart. It's just as it is, people, I'm sorry. And then, of course, in Act 3, when he's like calmed down from his absolutely non-existent anger, he goes after both of them. Well, Tristan, as we know, is already in his castle, and Isolde is on the way to this, and Marke follows them both. And he wants to say, I'm fine with this. You go get her. She's yours. I'm going to give her to you. Why didn't you tell me? I could have just done this. And this is really the moral high ground of the story. I mean, valid crash out, hang them. Completely okay. This would have been completely alright. Honestly. Just think that your wife and your best friend or son or whatever, they had an affair. You wouldn't react like Marke did. No human being would react like Marke did. He's almost godly. And not like in the Norse god of ways, but in the Catholic god of ways, in this perfect way. Everyone else is human. Everyone. But Marke. This is really maybe even a nod to Wiesendonck, that he said, thanks bro, you could have blown us up, but you didn't, and I'm thankful for that. Yeah. Problem is, and now we get to the problem of this, if Marke is the good one in this thing, who's the bad one? Because if you put Marke at the center of this, and if you say Marke is the good one, then the people who deceived him are the bad ones. So this would, in this case, would make Tristan and Isolde the bad ones. Just saying plain and simple, it's just, the math is mathing, unfortunately. Because they deceive him. And it's not, well, not really Isolde, because she doesn't have any choice. Really, she's a woman, she's been sold off to the winner of the fight, so to say. But Tristan, specifically, he's the bad guy. He deceived his king. Not only that he didn't say that he's in love with Isolde, but also that he met up with her in the middle of the night and didn't say anything and just lived on, so to say. Tristan's a bad guy. Wow, this is like... Someone should write a thesis paper about this. But anyway, in this version, when you really look at it, and don't look at how the story is narrated, because we're gonna get into this. As we all know, Wagner is ideologically compromised. Hugely. And he wants to give us his narrative. His worldview. He wants to give us that. This is why Tristan and Isolde is based around Tristan and Isolde, even though König Marke is clearly the good guy in this whole ordeal. And we're gonna have this again in the Valkyrie, because as we all know, there are people who Wagner's in favor of and there are people who are right. And this is two different persons. And it's gonna come down at the beginning of Act 2 of the Valkyrie. So, this is a thing of narration. Tristan and Isolde are the center of the attention, but they're not necessarily the best people. They're the protagonists. In this case, Melot is the antagonist. Then we have Marke, who's really the epitome of good, who's almost godly in his forgiveness, in his niceness, in his pureness, in his he doesn't want to do anything really. He's really frustratingly good. Let's be real. And then we have like Tristan and possibly Isolde, because they deceived him. And if they just hadn't, then we wouldn't have had this plot, because it would have been like, hey king, love this girl Isolde, can I like marry her? And he'd be like, yeah, go on, get over there and get her. And Tristan would have gone over like, hey Isolde, I'm Tristan, wanna marry me? And she'd probably slap him with a fish, because he's still killed he still killed her fiancé. Anyway, whom she didn't really like, but nonetheless, I think she would have slapped him with fish and then she would have still married him because there's a contract. Anyway, probably wouldn't have been as happy as they... Did I just say happy in regards to Tristan and Isolde? Well, they would have lived. Let's just say it like that. They would have lived. And they would have been married, and ultimately they would have resigned their differences. There's really no good ending to this. When I think about it, there's only this possibility. Anyway, so this is Tristan and Isolde, and I just want to say this at the end. So if you're just here for Wagner content, purely Wagner content, then you can just leave. But I just want to say that if you ever go to Neuschwanstein, to the castle, and, well, there's only always guides to guide you through the castle. You can't go in there alone, unfortunately. But if you're in the bedchamber of the king, then there's all around there those beautiful paintings of Tristan and Isolde, because mainly every room of Neuschwanstein is painted with portraits of the works of Richard Wagner, and in his bedroom there's Tristan and Isolde. Beautiful, really, really beautiful. And they say, yeah, this is based on the opera by Richard Wagner. This is one version, and we're not okay with the opera part, obviously. And then there's the second version of this, and this is Wolfram von Eschenbach's Tristan. And both are not right, because first of all, Wagner opera, nope, it's not an opera, it's a plot. Second of all, you see in one of the pictures that Tristan is giving that thing to Isolde. This is Wolfram von Eschenbach. This is not Wagner. Wagner, for Wagner, Isolde gets this away from him. He wants to drink it himself because he knows what it is. He knows what it is. And then Isolde is like, and gulps it down. So this first picture is definitely Wolfram von Eschenbach, because in Wolfram von Eschenbach's Tristan and Isolde, it's like, oh yeah, a drink! Nice! I want to drink this. Isolde, do you want to have something too? And this is the point where this portrait is painted off. When he gives her that thing. And this is not in Wagner. So, this is why it's from Wagner's Tristan and Isolde is at fault. Second thing is in the end, because Wolfram von Eschenbach never finished Tristan and Isolde. There's like this, they're this wide, the reclams. I've got them, this like 3 reclams, but he never finished it. They don't die with Wolfram von Eschenbach. And the whole third act is made up by Wagner. It's his version of how he saw it. So if you see it, there are like, I think it's 3. I'm not sure if it's 2 or 3 pictures. There's at least one where Tristan's like, he's at a window, he's waiting for Isolde to come, for her ship to come. This is not Wolfram von Eschenbach, this is just Wagner. Purely Wagner, nothing else, no one else. This is Wagner's version. And also the last thing where he's dead and Isolde is sprawled across his chest very beautifully. And Brangäne is also very beautifully praying at their side. This is also not Wolfram von Eschenbach, this is Wagner. So, and this bugs me every time that I'm at Neuschwanstein, but I know that most people who go to Neuschwanstein are not Wagner lovers. But still, I would just, if they could have like one tour every week even, where they say, we're gonna make one Wagner tour every week, and just have facts about that, that would be really nice, just saying it like that. And then you could have those extra 1 minute that would say, here we are in the bedchamber of the king, he didn't sleep here that much, only, what was it, like 91 nights, he only slept here 91 nights, 81 nights, whatever, I'm not good with numbers, as you may have noticed. He only slept here for not many nights, it wasn't finished. And this is running water, it's coming from the well down at the mountain, and it's pumping up, and this room is painted with pictures from Tristan and Isolde, which is based on Wolfram von Eschenbach's Tristan, and then was then made into a plot by Richard Wagner. And this room has paintings with combinations of both. And this is all that we need. Just saying. Also, there's this one beautiful picture of Brangäne, and I love it so much. It's my favorite. It's over the exit of above the exit of the bedchamber, and it's just beautiful. Isolde doesn't look that good, but Brangäne is really beautiful in that picture. Just saying. Maybe if you can, I think you can go online and have this kind of virtual tour, so maybe you can like see the pictures there. Just saying. So this is it, and this is Tristan and Isolde with our very questionable path to good and bad, and protagonist and antagonist was easier, and that's Tristan and Isolde for you. And I see you next week with Meistersinger and 2 tenors and a bass baritone. Let's see who's the good one in that. Which is kind of bad because I already told you that he kind of that Wagner kind of discarded the tenors after he's in exile. But anyway, see you next week.